The Bold and the Beautiful Thursday, September 4th recap. Thomas alarm bells go off for Brooke and Katie. The Bold and the Beautiful, B&B, recap for Thursday, September 4th, reveals that some Thomas Forrester, Matthew Atkinson, alarm bells went off for Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, and Katie Logan, Heather Tom. Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, was also on a mission to set a wedding date. So here's how Thursday's B&B episode played out. At Forrester Creations, Eric Forrester, John McCook, Brooke and Katie were all in agreement about who Ridge Forrester, Torsten K., truly belonged with. It was just a matter of Ridge coming back to Brooke before it was too late. Once Eric took off, Brooke and Katie discussed Thomas being back in town. There was some talk about Thomas's disturbing past, so Katie and Brooke feared how he'd react when Ridge's engagement to Taylor fell apart. Meanwhile, Ridge gave Taylor updates on Thomas and Paris Buckingham's Diamond White split. That left Taylor even more determined to lift Thomas's spirits and set a date for her nuptials with Ridge. When Eric appeared, Taylor gave him the news about setting a wedding date with Ridge soon. Eric privately ordered Ridge to end things with Taylor tonight, but Ridge brought up Thomas's desire for his parents to remarry. Since Thomas was an adult with a son of his own, Eric didn't approve of him putting pressure on Ridge. However, Ridge pointed out that's what Eric was doing, too. Eric stood his ground and worried about what the future held for Ridge if he didn't reunite with Brooke. Ridge was pensive as Eric once again pushed him to make the right decision and enjoy a Brooke reunion. Over with Thomas, he continued to fixate on Ridge and Brooke's lingering connection, though he held on to hope that his dad wouldn't let his family down. Taylor met up with Thomas in one of the Goose houses and let him know that she'd be setting a wedding date with Ridge soon. Although Taylor tried to talk to Thomas about his Paris breakup, Thomas shrugged it off and concentrated on Taylor's happy ending with Ridge. Ridge came home to Taylor later, so she put more pressure on him when it came to setting a wedding date. Despite Taylor's belief that Ridge would be her husband again, he looked torn after Eric's latest Brooke reunion pitch. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers say Ridge's next chapter won't turn out like Taylor expects, so don't miss all the drama that'll blow up down the road. The Forrester mansion was buzzing with undercurrents of suspicion and fragile hope on Thursday's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. What seemed, at first, like a moment of peace quickly unraveled into yet another storm, one centering, as it so often does, on Thomas Forrester. Thomas's fresh start or familiar trouble. Thomas has been working overtime to prove to everyone, especially his family, that he's truly changed. He's been walking the line between redemption and relapse, and on this particular Thursday, the scales began to tip in ways that Brooke and Katie couldn't ignore. While speaking with Hope, Thomas projected an image of calm, almost serene determination. He insisted he wanted only what was best for her and Douglas, and for once, his words seemed to carry genuine weight. Hope listened, not with the guarded suspicion she once held, but with cautious curiosity. Could Thomas really mean what he was saying? Could he finally be putting the manipulative schemes of his past behind him? But watching from a distance, Brooke wasn't convinced. Neither was Katie. Both sisters have been burned by Thomas before, his obsessive streaks, his manipulative games, his dangerous intensity. For them, every soft-spoken word and every carefully rehearsed smile rang alarm bells rather than reassurance. Brooke's protective instincts. Brooke, never one to stay silent when she senses trouble, quickly voiced her concerns. She reminded Katie that Thomas has a history of presenting himself as reformed just before slipping back into unhealthy patterns. Brooke's voice carried the sharp edge of a mother bear protecting her cub, especially since Hope is the one most vulnerable to Thomas's charms. Katie, usually the more diplomatic Logan sister, tried to balance her own unease with a willingness to consider Thomas's growth. People can change, she reasoned, though her tone revealed that even she wasn't fully convinced. Deep down, Katie knew Brooke was probably right to be wary. Thomas's intensity might be under wraps for now, but history suggests it could resurface at any moment. Hope in the middle. Hope, meanwhile, was caught squarely in the middle. She has been trying to move forward in her own life, to create stability for Douglas, and to guard her heart after so much emotional upheaval. When Thomas spoke about Douglas's well-being, his words struck the right chord. He seemed steady, present, and genuinely invested in fatherhood. But was Hope simply hearing what she wanted to hear? That's what Brooke and Katie feared most, that Hope's empathy and optimism might blind her to warning signs. And in soap opera fashion, the writers made sure those warning signs were faint but unmistakable. A lingering look here, a little too much passion in his voice there. It was enough to keep the audience on edge. Katie's concern grows. Katie's instincts began shifting by the end of the episode. As she replayed Thomas's words in her mind, she recognized a familiar pattern, charm laced with just enough intensity to be unsettling. She confided in Brooke that maybe they needed to intervene sooner rather than later. Brooke, unsurprisingly, was already forming a plan. Protecting Hope has always been her mission, and she's not about to let Thomas undo all the progress her daughter has made. Why the alarm bells matter. This episode wasn't about explosive confrontations or shocking reveals. It was about the simmering tension that comes from history repeating itself. Viewers know Thomas too well to simply trust his transformation, and the Logan sisters know him even better. Every time he tries to paint himself as reformed, the cracks eventually show. What makes Thursday's events so significant is that Brooke and Katie's doubts now align with the audience's instincts. Their suspicion turns what might have been a simple scene of co-parenting into a ticking time bomb. If Brooke's right, Hope could once again find herself caught in Thomas's dangerous web. If Katie's right, then Thomas may still have a chance to prove everyone wrong. The bigger picture. Beyond the immediate family drama, this storyline also connects to the broader themes that have kept the bold and the beautiful running for decades: redemption, obsession, family loyalty, and the constant tug-of-war between trust and betrayal. Thomas's struggle is less about whether he loves his family and more about whether he can truly conquer the darker parts of himself. Brooke and Katie, on the other hand, embody the eternal protectors, women who've learned from past scars and who refuse to let history destroy their loved ones again. Their alarm bells aren't just narrative devices, they're warnings that the show's writers are gearing up for another wave of emotional conflict.